Who is known as the Swedish Mozart, although he's not Swedish? Well, today I want to tell you about a German composer by the name of Josef Kraus. Josef was born in 1756 in Miltenberg, Germany, into a very well-educated family. His father was a civil servant and was very structured, very disciplined, and very involved in his son's education. So this meant that he grew up in an environment that valued intellect, structure, academic excellence, and not just artistic talent. So unlike many of the other people I've talked about, especially from this time period, he did not start music very early. He had music, but he actually went to school and studied law, he studied philosophy, and he went to different universities. So it seems he must have had some music education, like in high school, as a part of a well-rounded German education, but that's not what he went to school for. But then at one point he was studying in Göttingen and he was studying law, and he became involved in this group. It was called Heinbund, and it was a literary group focused on emotional expression, nature, and early romantic ideals. And this is really important because this kind of starts his music and also shapes his music. In this group, he is having these discussions and is deeply thinking about human emotion and drama and storytelling and how can we do this and how can we express ourselves. And he realizes, I am very good at music, and this is how I can find my voice to express all these things that we are discussing. So he decides to dedicate his life to composing and music. And now around the same time, Sweden has a king named King Gustav III. And under him, the arts is really exploding in Sweden suddenly because the king really loved it. So there's all this funding and people that are there to art. So he decides, I'm going to go to Sweden and try my best there. So in 1778, he packed up and moved to Stockholm to become a composer, and he was not successful. He struggled for 2 years, near poverty, just trying his best. Any door that had a crack, he tried to get in, and he was actually at the point where he's like, this is apparently not happening. Devastated, but he felt unseen, and he was getting ready to leave, and then everything changed. He got the attention of none other than King Gustav III himself. So the king became his patron and then gave him something extraordinary, a fully funded 4-year tour of Europe, so he could go and meet all the greatest musicians and composers of the time and learn and absorb different music from different cultures and compose while he was at it. That is pretty neat. And that's exactly what he does. During this time, he meets Christoph Gluck, he meets Haydn, he meets Salieri. Haydn hears his stuff. It's like, this is amazing, kid. You are phenomenal. That's really high praise from Haydn. His music was described as dramatic, as intense, and also very forward-thinking and ahead of its time. And he did things that were not the norm. For example, he wrote a flute quintet, which completely broke with convention. With an unusually long first movement, over 300 measures. Wow. It was so bold and so unconventional at the time. His music blends this classical clarity, this emotional depth, and early romantic intensity. He was exploring this dramatic expression before it just became mainstream. So his career is going very well. But we see a letter that he wrote to his parents when he was about 28 years old. He was lonely and he was sad and he wanted a wife. He was always touring, always composing, and he was really completely dedicated into his works. There wasn't a lot of time for this, but it makes me sad that he was sad. Then his life took this dramatic turn. His patron, King Gustav III, was assassinated. And so he sat down and he wrote the funeral music for the king. And then, in a weird twist, he gets sick, and this funeral music is the last music he ever wrote because he died of tuberculosis at the early age of only 36. He was buried in the winter on the ice of a lake. Very dramatic, kind of like his pieces. This haunting, solemn image like we can hear in his compositions. So, how is he known as the Swedish Mozart when he wasn't even Swedish? Well, there's two different reasons. Well, because obviously, because his whole career was in Sweden. One is that Haydn, after hearing his music, said he is one of the greatest geniuses in music. And he also thought about that as Mozart. So, there were two geniuses, Mozart and Kraus. The other reason being they were born in the same year and they died less than 12 months apart. They both died very young with a beautiful amount of music that they've left us. But unlike Mozart, Josef Kraus's music fell away into obscurity, mostly unknown, unperformed, for about 250 years. Many of his works might have been entirely lost if it wasn't for the efforts of this Swedish man by the name of Frederick Silverstolpe, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. Um, he was a Swedish diplomat, and he is the one that preserved and then ultimately promoted this music. And today, scholars are rediscovering all of Josef Kraus's music, and they're all agreeing with Haydn. Yes, this guy was truly a genius. History doesn't always remember greatness right away. I guess sometimes it takes centuries for it to catch up, but it's there and we can hear it now. So go and listen to something by Josef Kraus.